Hello and welcome to Boilermaker Lounge. I am Sam Sprunger, as always, joined by Grant Flora. Grant, the exhibition season is over like that.
Yeah, it is. It came quick, about a week long, and here we are, ready for another episode of the podcast. We got two games to talk about.
Yeah, we got a couple of exhibitions, which, mind you, mean absolutely nothing, Grant. Exhibitions mean nothing.
Yeah,
That's a little precursor to something that we'll chat about it a little bit after we talk about the first exhibition that the Boilermakers played.
the results mean nothing. It's
That
not that
that's
they
that's what
aren't
I mean.
useful.
That's what I
Right,
mean. When they're done, it's just whatever lessons you learned. It doesn't
right.
matter what the score is.
It's all about learning, all about feeling out where you're at,
Yep.
not about the result whatsoever.
So let's chat about a couple of exhibitions. Like I said, Purdue traveled to Lexington last Friday and took on the ninth ranked Kentucky Wildcats. And Grant, to say that there were some gaping or some very concerning things that came from that game is kind of an understatement, but the Boilers fall 78-65 to the ninth ranked Wildcats. What were your sort of your main takeaways from this game?
Well, for one thing, there's been a lot of conversation just about the result of this game, what it means for both teams, and also how both teams approached it. Um, Matt Painter explicitly said in a press conference post game they did not scout Kentucky. They did not scout or
Right.
really prepare for this game all that much. Um, whether or
And
not that
Kentucky fans are going, yeah, that's right. That's just because you
right,
lost.
yeah. Well, um,
There's more.
whether or not that's the right approach is kind of irrelevant because that's just what happened,
Right.
and it
Right.
clearly showed in the game. So you have to take that into account. Ultimately, we already said this. The result of that game really doesn't matter. I came in expecting a loss because I look back at the last 2 years of what happened to Purdue in these exhibitions, and that's just kind of how they've done it. They've gone on the road and taken on decent teams, but gone in with it maybe not being as prepared as they should have been, not being as sharp, and come out losing the game. So I
Right.
wasn't surprised by that. With that said, that's not to say there weren't some concerns within the game and there aren't things that need to be fixed and things that really weren't expected coming in as the preseason number one team. And we can get into some of those specifics, but for one thing, the shooting was atrocious.
Yeah.
3 for 17 from three, and they had some phenomenal looks. Fletcher Loyer knocked down too early and then just a brick the entire time. Everybody else was a brick the entire time without making anything. So the good news is we know Purdue's one of the best shooting teams in the country. That's not going to be like that. It wasn't against UIndy, but if Purdue makes decent numbers, 35% from three, they're right in the game.
Well, and to tell you how telling that that 3 point percentage and stat that you threw out there, three of 17. Daniel Jacobson was the other one to hit a 3-pointer for the Boilermakers against Kentucky.
Yeah, Braden was like 0 for 3.
0 for 3. Yeah.
So many guys 0 for 2. Benter, Meyer, like nobody was making anything.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I can tell you the way I took it and the way when I watched it, I made it very well known that I had to. And I've got a quick story. I was broadcasting a high school football game, and I had done my very best. I live in Ohio. All right, just take that into consideration. And I did my best not to see what happened for the exhibition game throughout. And at the end of the football game, there happened to be a Purdue fan walking by, saw my West Lafayette hat, and goes, "Oh, too bad they lost tonight, huh?" Are you kidding? I went the whole evening. Yeah. So, but when I watched it, there were concerns, and by then before I got to watch it, I actually did some looking to see what people's takes were. But the way I looked at it is at the start of that game, it was still kind of their big men getting used to being big men in the lineup. They still had the same struggles at the beginning of the game and kind of throughout the most of the game against Kentucky, of struggling with plays at the rim. Now Kentucky, very athletic team. They have a lot of athletes that can get by on man-to-man defense, and the help defense needs to be there. A bunch of times that I had seen early on, especially Clough and Jacobson, both were they were maybe on their man, but their man was pulled out far enough that it pulled them away from the hoop. And then they went. Matt Painter went to a little bit of the small ball that we talked about last Friday a little bit, to where neither Jacobson or Clough were in the game, and he was playing kind of the big man, and it was still kind of I mean, it felt like to me they were still trying to get used to being on the court at the same time with one another against somebody other than themselves. And the way I kind of put that is I always reference the Mike Tyson quote of everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth. Well, I think Purdue got punched in the mouth real quick, and they went, oh, and kind of backtracked into what they did prior. And then the fact that they couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with a basketball kind of hurt it even more.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say the same thing. They looked a lot like they did last year,
Yeah.
which is very concerning when you're thinking about the fact that they had some blaring issues last year, and they were supposed to be fixed with the new personnel on the team this year. I didn't think their perimeter defense was terrible, to be honest.
I didn't either.
It wasn't good, but it wasn't like, to me it was, you could almost say, adequate. It was the interior defense that was really bad. I mean, there were times guys were just left wide open at the rim, and sure, some of it was Kentucky shifting with the offense and whatnot, but there's no excuse.
Stuff,
right. There was no excuse for some of the baskets they were giving up. But to your point, they did cut phenomenally well between backdoors, between just rolling off of screens. Malachi Moreno on the pick and roll was unbelievable. Like the Kentucky did some very good things offensively and utilized the advantages they had. And with that in mind, if you don't scout a team like Kentucky and you're a team like Purdue that isn't as big or as athletic as kind of your normal juggernaut, you're going to see that. You're going to see the athletes do what athletes do and just flat out overpower some of these Purdue guys because they didn't scheme and they didn't have their defensive game plan they're going to have later on in the season. So that part wasn't surprising. It was a little bit concerning as a fan and as a spectator to see it. But we have to understand that when they get into the regular season and they can scout, not that they couldn't scout before, but when they do scout and they start to scheme more defensively, we're going to see more like what they did with Houston in the NCAA tournament. That team was way more athletic, way bigger, way more just flat out skilled, to be honest. And Purdue was able to defend them well enough to be in the game. And I think they have more pieces and will be able to defend better with this personnel to the point where it shouldn't be as big of an issue.
I saw some posts and things, and I didn't respond to them, so you should be happy about that. Proud of me for that. I didn't respond to any of them, but it just this just proves Matt Painter can't win big games again. It's an exhibition game. The result and the ending of the game does not matter. I'm going to repeat that again. The ending to the game, meaning the final score, does not matter. Now, you talked about they didn't study Kentucky. There's a reason behind that. There's a method to Matt Painter's madness to this, everybody. It's because he wants to see how his guys react to certain situations without knowing it. Can you imagine if they would have been able, or if they would have scouted and actually done something, some homework on them? They would have been more prepared. But like you said, it's not important really right now. It's to try to get, to get to mesh on the court in a situation that isn't just an in-game or an in-team scrimmage. B, to kind of see who's who. I've got some thoughts on some of the bench players. that we were able to find out from this game and the game a couple of nights ago against UIndy that we'll talk about here in just a few minutes. You know, those are the meanings behind these exhibitions. It's not whether or not you can wear your guys out and play them. Braden Smith played 32 minutes. That's low. Like that's
Yeah.
a low amount of minutes. And you look at UIndy, he played even less. But Trey Kaufman Wren, almost 30 minutes. Fletcher Lawyer, 30 minutes, over 31 minutes. CJ Cox, 24 minutes. Oscar Clough, almost 22 minutes. Then you look at the reserves. You have Jacobson at 18, Jakari Harris at just over 14 and a half, Omer Meyer over 13 and a half, and then Jack Benter got almost 10. And then you had a couple of minutes for Liam Murphy and 3+ for Antoine West. But like you're not playing those starters 30 minutes plus if that's what they needed. You're spreading the time out. And
Yeah.
that's what the meaning behind these exhibitions are.
Yeah, and let's get this straight. Like, I don't think, yes, Purdue did not scout Kentucky, and yes, Matt Painter, I don't think really cared if they won the game. In fact, I think he was more than okay with losing.
More okay than
right, to be humbled. However, I don't think it's something like some people are saying like he threw the game or Purdue threw the game. I don't think it's that. I think instead of Purdue coming in being okay with losing, trying to lose even, it's I wouldn't frame it that way. The way I would say is they were trying to win with one hand tied behind their back, where they weren't running their full playbook most likely.
No preparation on defensively.
They weren't preparing. Yeah, but clearly they still played well. You know, Braden Smith 32 minutes is a little bit low, and they were a little lower. They still played those guys a lot more minutes than anybody else. If they were really throwing the game, you would say, oh, they probably just play them 15 to 20 minutes. You know, they're not
let the reserves have a majority of the minutes.
And that's clearly not what was going on. So it's not that they completely threw the game. It's just they were trying to win with one arm tied behind their back. And I think Matt Painter at least had the expectation that they probably wouldn't win. Not that they weren't trying or even like, not that they were accepting a loss, if you kind of get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. They weren't accepting the loss. They were okay with the results as long as they were able to do some things. And you know, they were exposed, which, you know, that doesn't hurt Matt Painter's feelings, because you know what? We'd rather find out early that we've got these to work on and change them over the course of a 30+ game season to get ready for March, which this exhibition prepared them for March. Period. There's no two ways about that. Even though it was an exhibition, they have that experience of playing against a team like Kentucky, because Kentucky came to play to win. And you know, you've got the Kentucky faithful coming out and talking just lovingly towards you know, Purdue and everything, and also making sure that everybody knew that Kentucky beat the number one team in the country. Again, Purdue fans, most that I've seen, not every, but most that I'd seen or paid attention to, you know, exhibitions. We want to win, but you know, exhibitions, get experience, learn lessons. That's what the exhibition's for. No, you're just saying that because you got beat by, you know, Kentucky. Well, Grant. Thursday night, last night, Georgetown, the Hoyas, who have struggled mightily in the past few years, cost Patrick Ewing his job. I don't think he's the coach there still, is he?
Ed Cooley took it.
I was going to say that.
Providence.
That's right. He left Providence and went to Georgetown. Patrick Ewing lost his job there. Before that, it was John Thompson III, who didn't perform that well after a few years of being there. So Georgetown been not the greatest of teams in the world. Went into Rupp Arena and beat the Wildcats 84-70. I saw Boiler Muse on Twitter, or on the platform formerly known as Twitter, post, I cannot wait to see Kentucky fans go back to exhibitions don't matter.
Yeah, listen, it's not to to have beef with other fan bases here or
No,
something.
but
But
yeah,
like, and to be honest, I think Georgetown's probably a better team than what they've been in the past.
I
Like they're
agree.
going to be
I do
relevant in the
too.
Big East. And Malik Mack looks like a really good star for them, and
Right.
they're going to be able to build around him. So it's not like Kentucky got beat by a terrible team, but a loss at home to Georgetown sounds a lot worse than a
By
loss on the road to
14.
a blue blood, right? Not, yeah, it wasn't even that close.
Yeah.
So actually, they lost to Georgetown by more than Purdue lost to Kentucky. In
On the
if
same
you do
floor.
that, right? So like, it just goes to show for Purdue, they benefited a lot from that Kentucky game, and they benefited from the UIndy game. They had guys that, and we'll get to that more, but they had guys that gained a lot of confidence in that game that needed it.
Mm-hmm.
Kentucky learned a massive lesson between this 2-game span. They beat a great team in Purdue and looked amazing in that game, and they showed up to dominate, really. And then they go to Georgetown, and to me, this looks like a letdown game where they had a big game, come against a weaker opponent, and they lose. But also, like, they just got exposed in some ways. And Georgetown came the same hungry mentality that Kentucky had against Purdue. Kentucky has now learned this lesson of we have to be hungry every night. We're going to be targeted every night. And they learned a lot about their basketball team, and they're 0-0.
Yeah.
That's
Still
why you
doesn't
play
matter.
these exhibition games. They learned so much about it. They haven't, nothing is going to affect their tournament resume, and they're going to be a monster this year. Like, I love Purdue. I think we're great. I think we have the chance to be the best team in the country. Kentucky's going to be really good. You can just tell.
Oh yeah.
So
I just
I'm not trying to go at the Kentucky fan base here, but I want
I don't
to
mind.
like this is what this is for. This is kind of, at
Exactly.
least for me, what I tried to point out before the Kentucky game, and now everybody's gone on this roller coaster, and yet here we are.
Everybody can go to the tapes. They can see that we've talked about that it's important that yes, you go to play to win. You never play to not win. I mean, what are you playing for if you're going to not win the game? But there are caveats to it, and there are, the experience and the lessons that you learn is a lot more important than the outcome of an exhibition game. I saw someone posted, I do not remember, it was somebody from like ESPN or something, I think, that said, man, I still love the days when these were secret exhibitions and nobody cared about the outcome. Because it's absolutely right. Once you open those doors for fans to see it, it gets conflated or just inflated to be way more than what it is. It was great and exciting for us to be able to see Purdue on the court and play, but really, honestly, it wasn't important that we saw it, because you know what? The only thing we're learning is, what still needs to be fixed. Also that Matt Painter was learning or trying to figure out some rotation stuff, and just all of this stuff that it's not overall important. But I will tell you, Grant, it kind of upsets me that they fell to Kentucky just for the fact that when we go 40-0, Kentucky will be able to say, well, we beat you. No.
I know there's always the aspect of pride and bragging rights. Like, I didn't want to lose to Kentucky. I know a lot of Kentucky fans. I didn't want to lose to them, but like, it's like we just talked about. The Purdue is going to be way better off for it. They played in a tough road environment. Coach Painter has talked about the importance of that.
Mm-hmm.
And Kentucky's gained a lot of confidence in that and is learning a lot too. So it's a mutual benefit for both programs, and that's why Mark Pope and Matt Painter scheduled that game.
Absolutely. So that is the overall kind of findings there. Honestly, there were flashes of really, really good basketball there. There were Purdue playing, but that's what gives me the comfort of knowing that they're getting used to one another. It's still a learning process. There's only 4 of those starters played together last year, but there's a dynamic of adding in a big man there that wasn't part of the trials and the tribulations. Granted, if Daniel Jacobson is there last year, some of those trials and tribulations don't come through because he's there to play good defense or play some rim protection and maybe throw some offense out there that but like they're still getting used to one another. They really are.
Yeah, you saw a lot of different lineups and stuff put together here, and I think we learned a lot about what's going to go well for this Purdue team and what is going to take some work. Um, I specifically had some questions about Oscar Clough and just kind of the way that he fit in, and just the way he played in these first two exhibition games. I
He's got a
expect his play.
lot of work to do still.
Yeah, and I think he will get there.
I do
I think
too.
a lot of it has to do with just getting comfortable in
Yep.
these situations. But like his rebounding was nowhere near where we thought it would be, and where we know he's capable of rebounding. That's gonna change. But the fit next to TKR, because of how TKR operates, we're needing some space, and Oscar Clough being more of a traditional post up as well. Um, I think most people thought those two would coexist better than what we've seen so far. It's not that they can't, but it's starting to look like Daniel Jacobson's a better fit. And the way that Jacobson's playing, we'll see. Jacobson might end up emerging and fitting more either into that starting center role or at least getting more of those primary minutes earlier in the season than probably what we were expecting.
And let's take this into consideration. Think about something is Daniel Jacobson was a very high recruit coming into college. So the fact that he missed last year, he's got to get back into some playing condition, but he's still extremely talented, not taking a thing away from Oscar Clough. He wasn't this high of a recruit. He had to work his way through a couple of programs to get to this point here. Not saying he's not a good player, not saying that he couldn't be still a dominant player at times, but let's face the fact that Daniel Jacobson is a high rated recruit. When he was coming into Purdue, he's 7+ foot tall. He can shoot. He's a little bit more versatile. He protects the rim a little bit more. Maybe doesn't rebound as much, but these two guys couldn't be much. I mean, they're pretty much night and day difference at the center position. The way they play the center position.
Yeah, and it makes it really good for Purdue to have those
For
two
sure.
different options. But it also, I think, shows why Jacobson complements TKR better than Clough, at least the way it kind of looks, because Clough fits more the mold of like what TKR is trying to do, whereas Jacobson can spread the floor, like you said, and has more rim protection, and it's just a little bit more mobile. His frame, everything just kind of fits a little bit better around TKR, where he can have the
Right.
space to operate. Jacobson can still be effective at the five, and you know, you could play 4 out, 1 in with TKR with Jacobson on the outside, hit the 3 against Kentucky. That's the kind of thing where if Purdue's going to kind of reach their ceiling and reach their potential, they've got to be able to have those types of players coexist together. And if Jacobson is the path to that, then we got to see if we could do it. But that's not to say that people should give up on Clough.
Oh
I
no,
think
there will
Clough
be
has a
games that
chance.
he will be expected to be the big man. I think there are going to be
Right.
games that they play that the other teams will have big men that need a body to bump against them, and that's where Oscar Clough comes into play.
Yeah, to be honest, he didn't really show that against Kentucky. I mean, he
No,
was getting pushed around as much as anybody, but I think he's going to figure out how to do that more. To your point, I also think, Oscar Clough, it might be something kind of like the TKR Zach Edey situation I heard about, or not TKR, the Travion Williams Zach Edey situation from a few years back. I heard this comparison where like he can come in, TKR gets spelled and goes out. Now Clough's your primary interior offensive player as well. He has more space to create and kind
right.
of takes up those minutes when TKR is on the
They're
bench.
kind of clogging, counteracting one another.
Right. Right. So I think he becomes really important when TKR is not on the floor. And even when he is, they can still figure out ways to utilize him. It just these games have showed that naturally it's not as easy of a fit as we hoped it would be going in.
Yeah, well, there's got to be a little bit of Rome wasn't built in a day type thing. It really is something that will take a little bit of time. Now, that's another reason why these exhibitions get played, so you can start working on some meshing and building these things that you're hoping to build up to in April, where you can cut down some nets after winning the national championship. It's also why you got a couple of not cupcakes, but a little lesser known teams or talented teams at the start of your season. And it's not just Purdue that does it. Every team in the country that is expected to be good does this, and it's for a little bit of warm up. Simple.
Yeah. Yep. And are we officially in the UIndy portion of
We're
the
getting
show?
ready. I was just getting ready to start opening that. Let's jump into that. Thursday night, Purdue hosted the University of Indianapolis, and they won 92-49. 92-49. Grant, this was a little bit better. Obviously, the score, but there were a lot better things that we saw from the Boilermakers in this one.
Yeah, I mean, shooting numbers were a lot better. Obviously, 15 of 30 from three is about as good as you'll see for Purdue.
Free throws, 70%.
Yes, and they got to the line quite a bit. So that's obviously really good to see. I think this game was huge for guys like Antoine West, Jack Benter, obviously Jakari Harris, Omer as well. Some of these newer guys, some of these younger guys who don't have as much experience, I guess, that are coming in and trying to find their rhythm. Because against Kentucky, you saw Benter and West and Omer get some really good looks, especially from three, that didn't drop. And I think, especially with these new guys, it takes a little bit to just kind of get over the adrenaline and the nerves of playing real basketball games for the first time in Purdue uniforms. And they started to knock some of those shots down against UIndy. And the more they can do that and build up some confidence, the more they're going to be consistent in some of those bigger games where it matters a little bit more. So I thought that was huge just to see those guys get in and start to get a little bit more comfortable. But Jakari Harris is the one. I thought he looked good against Kentucky, even though he had
only had 5 points.
I thought he looked good on both sides of the basketball, but he looked terrific against UIndy, and that's going to be a big part for Purdue.
I can tell you the immediate moment that I thought, yeah, Jakari's going to be a beast this year. And it was about midway through the first half, a little bit past the midway point of the first half against Kentucky. And first off, it was started by a great steal, or a floor burn steal by Omer Meyer. He jumps on the ball, flips over, lands on his hindquarters, tries to get up, passes it to Smith. Smith handed it right off to the right on a little shovel pass to Jakari. He gets fouled, still gets the shot up, high up off the glass, and it falls in. That was one of the most athletic plays we saw all night there. And that right there got me really, really excited about what he might be able to bring this season, even in a non-starting role. And I'm not saying he couldn't take the starting role eventually, because you just don't keep somebody that is clicking off the starting lineup or out of the starting lineup. But even in the reserve role, he's showing that he has completely and utterly improved on the offensive end. He was always a pretty good defensive and highly respected defender last year. So that's still there, but the fact that his offensive game is coming and he's doing things. He had 20 last night, or two nights ago, against University of Indianapolis. 7 of 10, 4 of 5 for threes, 2 of 3 for free throws. He had 4 rebounds. I mean, and he did not turn the ball over, and he only committed 1 personal foul. Granted, he only played 18 minutes because it ended up being a blowout, but he had an 8-0 run, personal 8-0 run, after Indy had cut it to 10. He went on an 8-0 run near the end of that first half to make it an 18-point game at the half. he's gonna be. I'll just say it right now. He'll be a starter by midway point of the season.
Yeah, well, here are my thoughts. I got a few things. For one, his other basket against Kentucky, I also thought was really nice because he
Yes.
he had really good footwork. It was in traffic and kind of just scooted up, put it in. Even that was a play I don't think he would have made last year.
No, I
And
agree.
that was one too where I was like, man, he looks good, and he just looked like a different player, even the way he was defending, his physicality. So yeah, I thought he looked good against Kentucky despite the lower numbers. And then obviously his efficiency against UIndy with the minutes, with the percentages, like he was firing on all cylinders, and he looked like the player that a lot of these people that cover Purdue closely have kind of talked about, um, which is huge for Purdue because he has a little bit more size. Defensively, he's good. He basically has a lot of characteristics that the Purdue roster overall is lacking. And if he can
Yeah.
come in and be a factor offensively, as well as bring in all those characteristics defensively, like he's going to plug a lot of holes for this Purdue team. As far as starting, it's I think you definitely could be right. He definitely could be starting within a month or two on this team.
If he shows the progression
Right.
in
His
games that
progression.
matter, exactly like he did these two exhibitions, I would say he's a starter by midway through.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'd say right now he looks better than CJ Cox,
I don't
in
disagree.
my opinion. And now here's what I would say. And I listened to the guys over at Sleepers Media. Greg talked a little bit about this, and I think he's got a really good point. I think it makes a lot of sense. If these two are interchangeable, it makes sense to start CJ Cox because when you play alongside Fletcher Lawyer, there's a little bit more size there. You
Yeah.
don't need the overall physicality as much as if you play Omer. And if you play Omer next to Braden, that three spot needs to be somebody that's bigger and can handle, especially defensively guarding a guy like maybe Otega Owe, for example. So it makes sense rotation wise to start CJ Cox, and then you bring CJ and Fletcher off the floor and put in Jakari and Omer, and now you can play Braden, Omer, and Jakari together, kind of as that second unit when that time comes. So it's CJ starting doesn't even necessarily mean CJ is better than Jakari.
Oh
It
no,
just
not
means
at all.
rotation wise, it makes a little bit more sense. Now, to your point, I think if Jakari ends up being that much better than CJ, yeah, you got to start the guy.
Right.
And to me, I think Jakari is the one who has a chance to really take this Purdue team to the next level for all the reasons we just talked about. So I'd love to see that happen. But I think starting CJ Cox is as much of a rotational, strategic type of move as much as CJ Cox also just being a good basketball player, which he is. He looked good against IUND too.
Yep. And let me reiterate that again is if he shows the progression, like if he shows, a game against Alabama and he comes off the bench and scores 15 points when Purdue needs it, and then does some other things and just basically demands to be not personal, like actually coming out and demand it, but like his game just demands to be a starter, then that's what I'm saying is I think that he'll become the starter. If you know what Matt Painter's even said it. Just because they're starters doesn't mean they're going to get the most minutes. It doesn't mean that they're going to be relied upon more than the others. It's just a matter of who gets the tip first, basically, or gets to be out there for the tip, and then after that, it's whatever happens. But I really just he's shown so much in these two exhibitions that he's gonna be the real deal, I think, and that even and I even posted about this, and I think I even told you this, or maybe it was Dustin Shooty that I was texting with. I said this makes me think Antoine West Jr. is going to redshirt, just simply because if Harris is this improved, Cox is going to be better too. Those guys are going to take most of those reserve minutes or starter, those that position minutes. Sorry, those two and mixed 3 minutes that West just isn't going to have any minutes to play.
Yeah, and while West looked better against IUND, put up 8 points. To be honest, his performances in the first 2 exhibition games were nothing crazy.
No,
Um,
no, you're
he
right.
like we talked about how good he looked in his practice highlights and stuff, and I think he still has great upside and is a good player. And I think a lot of it has to do with nerves and getting comfortable playing.
Sure.
But like it would be a different story if he came in and was knocking down shots and seemed to be making an impact in these first 2 exhibitions, but he hasn't looked like anything extra special. And when you're right, you have guys like Jakari Harris that are looking really good and looking like they've made strides. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to play him this season with what they have.
And they've got to make that decision before they play him in any of the. They can be on the roster, but they can't actually play, I think, is what the ruling is. For him and Omer Meyer are the only two that can consider, or that they can consider red shirts for, because they are freshmen, but yet they played in the exhibition. The Any of the players that were past their freshman year, if they played in the exhibitions, they cannot redshirt. I found that out. I didn't even realize that was the rule. But since they played in the exhibitions, but they're freshmen, so they can still redshirt after that. But they'll have to make that decision before, I would think that they would make that decision before the game against Evansville.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're able to maybe play one of those games and still redshirt. I feel like
I
it's
I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it's the exhibitions that they're. I don't know.
and it might be different because
Yeah,
it's
I
not
don't know.
medical, right? Like
Correct.
Jacobson's able to
That's what I was going
redshirt.
to say. And that's
Yeah,
what I was going to say is if it's medical, if they haven't played in a certain percentage of the games, they can get a medical red shirt. But when it comes to just red shirting to red shirt, I don't know that they get any
yeah,
games in the regular season.
yeah. Well, yeah, I'd expect that decision to come soon, regardless. So, yeah, it'll be something to monitor. But overall, I like this Purdue team's still in a good spot. We
Oh,
talked about
absolutely.
some of the issues. Like this is a good team. I One of the things, see, everybody's talking about this as in framing what works best around Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, Trey Kaufman-Renn. And they talk about those three, their minutes being pretty much non-negotiable. With the way Jakari and CJ are playing, this is not a popular train of thought, I don't think, among most Purdue fans and most analysts. I wouldn't be totally against the idea of seeing Fletcher Lawyer's minutes drop at least a little bit, depending on who Purdue's playing. Like if they're playing a team like Kentucky, in order to play more of CJ Cox and Jakari Harris at the same time, because those two guys are such good defenders, especially on the perimeter,
Yep.
and their offensive games have taken leaps forward. This Purdue team, one of their biggest holes and one of their biggest weaknesses is athleticism and size, especially on the perimeter. And as good as Fletcher Lawyer is, it might be worth playing more of CJ Cox and Jakari Harris at certain times simply for those reasons. Because next to Braden Smith, they're going to be solid defensively, especially with Purdue not having the same type of interior defense as what we hoped they would, at least at this point in time. And I don't think a lot of people are going to agree with this idea. Potentially, like what would it look like to see Fletcher Lawyer's minutes come back a little bit? I love Fletch. I think he's obviously a huge part of what they're going to do. But in a game like the Kentucky game, I was just watching Fletch guard out there, and it's like there's just nothing he can do against some of those guys like Otega Owe and even like Jasper Johnson. And there was one where I don't remember exactly who it was, but they were driving right in, and they just kind of pushed him out of the way and got to the rim. That doesn't happen probably if it's Jakari Harris.
Well, and no, I don't. I think you're absolutely right. Jakari, of those two, Jakari's the better defender. That's just it. We haven't seen any different, like anything to make us believe different between him and Fletcher. But we did talk to him on media days that his shortcoming is his defense. Did he work on that? And he said, absolutely. Somebody's got to dump on. They've got to dump on somebody. So I'm going to carry that with me and work on it. We don't know exactly what he worked on, or how he would try to improve it, but maybe he has improved. Not that he was not trying to play defensively, but when you have preparation prior to, you do have a little bit more knowledge of how to defend somebody. So the fact, and I don't discount what you're saying with Owe and all the guys from Kentucky that kind of, that he had to defend. They were better athletes. They were going to probably get by him anyway, but maybe it wouldn't be as easy if he had enough time to scout and learn tendencies and things like that. I'm not trying to make excuses for him, but I don't disagree. If it still continues to where his liability, let's come to it. His liability is still going to be his defense.
Right.
That's not saying that we're damning him for it. It's just going to be his deficiency.
Yeah, and a lot of it is simply from a physical aspect.
Yep.
Like, and you can have as much knowledge and scouting and just defensive prowess in the world, but if a guy has a lot more strength and poundage than you're going to have a hard time defending
Correct.
him.
Yep.
Which is why in the future, if Purdue was playing a team like Kentucky in a major setting, like either a conference game that means a lot or NCAA tournament or something like that, like, to me, I wonder how much Matt Painter would consider dialing back Fletcher's minutes just a little bit, even if it's like playing between 20 and 25 as opposed to 25 to 30 or something like that. Just to play a little bit more of CJ Cox and Jakari Harris, especially if they're going to be consistent from the
pulling
outside.
5 minutes away from Fletcher is what you're saying?
Yeah, something like that,
Yeah.
where it's just you get more of the size and defensive intensity that you need.
Sure.
And if they're going to shoot the way they did, like, you're not going to have a huge drop off offensively. And in Jakari's driving, like, a lot of Fletch's kind of MO, I feel like, has been his offense is it kind of offsets his defense, and you need him on the court for his offense. These other guys for Purdue are starting to prove that they can play offensive basketball. They can shoot well, they can drive, they can do what's necessary. And if they can kind of supplement that offense to where it's not that much lower than what Fletch can do, and yet they're that much better defensively, I feel like it's worth entertaining that train of thought, even if, it's not like we're not going to start Fletch. It's not like we're not going to play him still a solid amount of minutes. It's just maybe we become a little less reliant on him, and instead we really use those 2 and 3 guard spots to defend and just get a little bit tougher on both sides of the ball. And it's the age-old saying, defense wins championships, and Purdue's going to have to be able to guard this year. I know they're a great offense, but they're going to have to be able to guard if they want to reach their ultimate goals.
One final thing on Jakari Harris before we kind of wrap things up here. 2 years ago when Purdue made it to the national championship game, they had the pieces in place for the next season to make us think that even though losing Zach Edey, so last year, losing Zach Edey, there still should be some things that Purdue should do well. They're going to have players coming off the bench. Cam Heide, Mr. Colvin, Miles Colvin. We just anticipated being, those athletic athletes who can shoot the ball, but yet can still get to the rim. Neither of them kind of came to fruition, right? Since then, have moved on to other places, and wish them the best of luck unless they're playing Purdue. Hopefully they lose then. But my point being on that is, I think Jakari Harris is capable of having seen what he's shown in these 2 exhibitions, and kind of what we'd seen from the highlights, is he may be able to take that place of that expectation and maybe actually come through with it.
Yeah, I mean, consistency is going to be his big thing. Can he do this on a nightly basis against high level competition? Because we're still talking D2 or UIndy here.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Right. But I agree. Like, he already looks better than Colvin and Heide did, and
that's not taking anything away from those 2 guys,
right? And Colvin had a couple games where he went off for like 20 and was making shots and driving and dunking and all that stuff. Heide obviously came in with some big moments. Like, Jakari, for all we know, could do the exact same thing, where it's once every 5 games he puts up some good numbers and the other
when
four, he
it's
just looks
needed.
like right. But at the same time, he could fit that mold where the other 4 games, you just wish you could have gotten more from him. In which case, I'd say, well, can we really say he did more than Colvin and Heidi did?
Right.
But if he can be consistent with it, and if he gets open for three, he knocks it down. If he has a chance to get out in a break or has a chance to defend and make his presence known, and he does on a consistent basis, then yeah, I totally agree. I think he comes on a lot better than Heidi and Colvin, and even fills some gaps probably in better ways than they had the ability to.
Now, at this point, I would say, as of right now, I haven't seen, but yet he's still got one. He doesn't have as quick of an explosive first move as Cam Heidi had, and but he does have a good first move, and I think that will improve with more playing time and being able to, like you said, be more consistent. If he sees those opportunities popping up, and he works in the his own time, learning how to be just a little bit more explosive, we may see the fact that he's able to be a little bit more explosive even start to develop out during the rest of the season as well. I'm really excited about Jakari Harris. We talked about it for a good portion of the offseason, that those two, Cox and Harris, are the ones that were kind of the wild cards. We didn't know how they would come back, and Cox has done okay. I mean, he's done well. Nothing to say I'm alarmed about him at all, but Jakari Harris is getting me really, really pumped.
Yeah, and back to what you said about Heidi, he had a good first move, good first step. I just wish he would have used it more. I mean, I
Right.
know
Yep.
I don't want to talk too much about Heidi. He's not in the team anymore, but I remember that Texas A&M game. They were trying to make that late game comeback, and he just had like a rip and drive where he jackhammered it home at the rim, and I was just like, where has that been, and why did that not continue? Because that's exactly what Purdue needed that
Yeah.
year. And
Yeah.
not just a shooter, but someone who could drive and go. And Jakari Harris, while he might not have the same first step, if he's willing to do that and he's tough enough physically to get in there and handle some of the physical interior play, then that's going to be huge for Purdue. Because while Braden and Fletch are tough and they do drive and get inside and whatnot, they don't have the physical capabilities that Jakari Harris does. And we saw it against Kentucky. We saw it against UIndy. He's going to add an element that Purdue doesn't currently have as a strength. And those are the types of things that take Purdue from being a Sweet 16 team to a championship contender.
Well, and again, this is 1A. One last thing about Harris is I started to see in spots, or well, let's say it this way: I didn't get to watch the game against Indy because it was on Big Ten Plus, and so I found the radio call of it, and it just they were describing it, and then seeing some of the actions against Kentucky. He's starting to develop some moves and some semblance, not comparing apples to apples here, but some flashes of his dad. And Glenn Robinson is the best basketball player I've ever seen come through West Lafayette. Now, older people might say Rick Mount. There are cases for a lot of different players, but Glenn Robinson was an absolute dominant player, and there are some moves that I can remember him doing that I've seen kind of some flashes of Jakari doing in that. If he can replicate some of those, the ability to shoot from deep, he's got that possibility. The ability to make a move and finish at the hoop, he's got that capability. He's really got the capability of being somebody that is going to make differences in games. He really is.
Yeah, and you pair him as a bench guy with Omer Meyer and and whatnot, and it's like, okay, this Purdue backcourt is really as good as advertised. To be honest, there's no reason to think they aren't. Like, sure, Fletcher and Braden haven't put up the numbers we're used to, but they will. Not concerned about them at all. If this front court comes together, then even though Purdue had a disappointing performance against Kentucky, you're really looking at the same offense that we expected to see coming into the season. and then it comes down to defense. And
Yep.
again, the more this team plays, the more they're going to figure it out, and they just have such a better roster to be able to just that these improvements will take them to better places than last year. Last year, the ceiling was just too low. This year, it's a high ceiling because of the personnel.
Yeah, I agree. And this wasn't the Jakari Harris fan club show. It was just it literally the Kentucky game was there was a mixed bag of so much. I still saw a bunch out of him there, and then he had the big game against Indy there on Thursday or on Wednesday that it really got me going and hoping that we see him develop even further. So, but that brings us to the end. We ran a little bit over than what we normally do, or most of the time do anyways. Let's say it that way. But starting next week, we have the regular season starting, Grant. So we're gonna shift into pre-conference schedule mode, I guess. And we're going to go with a Tuesday-Friday episode next week. The Boilermakers tip off against Evansville at home on Tuesday evening. And then they play, who is it that they play on Friday? Grant, you had this, didn't you?
Yep, they play Oakland.
Oakland, that's right. The Grizzlies come into Mackey to play on Friday, so we'll have a reaction to Evansville preview on of Oakland on Friday, but on Tuesday we will preview the Aces coming into Mackey and taking on the Boilermakers. But we'll have some other stuff, maybe some residual effect of we may have some red shirt news by then, something like that. But it's been so fun trying to anticipate and get to this point. And no matter what any Kentucky fan tells you, ladies and gentlemen, exhibitions, they matter with the lessons you learn, not with the outcome of the game, the final outcome of the game score-wise, as they should be able to tell you now.
Yeah. Yep. That's about.
I don't mind talking smack to them, Grant.
Oh, man.
I know a lot of Kentucky fans. I love them dearly, but I will still talk some smack to them because you know what? For years I've been, oh, you're a Purdue fan. What do you have to be happy about? So you know what? That's fine.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's hard to talk smack when you did lose, but
oh no, it's not.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. But it'll be a good season.
Yes, it will. And like I said, it just upsets me that Kentucky will have that brag of, well, we beat you after we go 40-0. It's just just a thing. But no, I'm joking.
We're gonna get so much slack in Purdue. This is the first game.
You know what? That's just it, though. If you can't tell that I'm saying it in jest,
right?
It's not my issue. But
I can, just so you know.
I know you do. But yeah, you're right. Somebody's not gonna think I'm saying it in jest and just rail me. I'll be like, well, you obviously don't listen enough or watch enough. So, but all right, that brings us to the end of this week's Boilermaker Lounge. Next week, like I said, Tuesday, Friday, as the Boilermakers have a game on Tuesday and Friday, and we get closer to the game against Alabama coming up. We just got a lot coming up, and it's all going to start just hitting. And before we know it, Grant, it's going to be March, and we're going to be dancing. So it is going to be fast, furious, and I'm going to love every single minute of it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
All right. Well, thanks again for joining us this week. We'll see you on Tuesday. For Grant Flora, I'm Sam Sprunger. We'll see you then.